Hey, Growing Small Town Show listeners, it's Rebecca, and I am coming at you today with a solo cast. I haven't done a solo cast for a little while, and I just feel like I want to talk to all of you. I get that that's part of the gig, right? Like that's what I get to do, being a podcast host and bringing cool people on our show. But today there have been a few things that just keep coming up. They keep showing up. And whenever things happen like that for me, I'm learning anyway to lean into that truth and listen, because I tend to think that the things that are given to us that they don't fully let go, that means we're supposed to do something with them. And so I want to share a bit about where we're at with Growing Small Towns as an organization. It has been such a year on like a million fronts, right? And I want to speak to those of you specifically today that are contemplating the launch of something or the start of something new, because I just know from what I've experienced in this last year. And again, I don't necessarily believe that truth comes from only subjective experience. I don't believe that, but I do know that the lessons I've learned are things that I want to share with you, because I think I am as type A and perfectionist seeking. And even still now, I'm still a people pleaser by nature. I am as much those things as anybody I ever talk to, I think. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm getting better, right? Like I've acknowledged that those things will hold me back from pursuing the things that I think I want to see happen. But I'm telling you, if I really just feel in my heart, like if I can move forward through this really hard time, being wired the way that I am, I really truly believe that anybody can. And so I want to share these things with you. I have come up with, there's 6 different things to keep in mind. And this is going to be like a smattering of some practical things and some mindset things, because I actually think at the end of the day, it's our successes. And again, you get to define that for yourself, friends. Like this isn't this is what success looks like and just climb this ladder and do this thing and you'll get there. I actually just don't believe in that at all. I think all of us are on this earth equipped with our own set of gifts, equipped with our own set of skills and talents, and then also with our own particular dream or vision or plan. Not all of us want to pursue, entrepreneurial things. Some of us just want to, like, work is a compartment that they keep really nice and tidy, and they make their mark on the world in some other way, right? So this isn't meant to be just about business development or the launching of specifically a business. This could be anything that you want to see happen, anything that you want to bring about. So the idea of success, it's meant to be something we define for ourselves, and then the journey for how we achieve that is also unique to every single one of us. So I try really hard. I definitely get soapboxy. I can admit that. I have really strong beliefs about certain things, but I think if nothing else, I have come to realize that each unique individual will have unique contributions to make and probably a unique path to arrive there. And the more that we can allow for that, the richer and the more diverse and beautiful does our existence with one another look like. So without further ado, I want to share these 6 general takeaways. I did make notes because I wanted to have some clarity of thought. I didn't want it to all be just a chaotic mess, as I tend to get very existential at times. So let's dive in. The first thing, so again, this is the frame around this, the context around this is for those of you that are considering or pondering or maybe mid-launch of something new, a new idea, a new business, a new thing that you want to bring about. Number 1, there is no replacement for action. I'm going to say that again. For my planning, loving friends, there's no replacement for action. So we tend to take time thinking, asking other people what they think. We worry, we analyze, we dream, like on the positive side, like it's a dreaming, like we spend a lot of time dreaming and thinking about it and planning what we're going to do. Not one of those things has anywhere near the same impact that doing and acting does. And I think I bring this up first because I swear of all the things that I tend to fall into the most, this is it, because I just want to do things well and I just want to do things right and I don't want to screw up. and you really think about where all of that is coming from, it's the fear of failure, the fear of looking stupid, the fear of publicly failing, right? If it's a big thing that a lot of people can see, it can be scary. But there is no replacement for taking action. And in fact, I just want to share this with you. The whole last year, so I formed Growing Small Towns, the nonprofit itself, in June of 2019. I didn't take possession of the building that we're remodeling until October 29th of 2020. There's a lot of planning, a lot of time to think, a lot of time to talk myself out of what I was trying to do, a lot of time to do the whole dramatic, catastrophic view of every horrible thing that may go wrong. It was a lot of time. And we have made so much progress in the last, 6 weeks because of the commitment behind owning the building. And so that goes along with this too. When you think how do I move out of operating from a place of fear and take action? Committing changes the way that we approach the thing that we're trying to do, actual commitment. So on a couple podcasts ago, I had Brody Mueller and Carly Pokup on, and we were talking about not even small bets is part of it, but it really is committing for a period of time, saying, okay, this is the thing I want to try. This is the thing I want to do. And saying, okay, I'm going to give it 6 weeks or I'm going to give it 2 months. I bought a building, so it's not so much a time commitment, but it's a project commitment. I now am committed to getting that thing done. And there's this feeling where it's everything kind of shifted to now, I could spend all this time worrying about what's going to go wrong, but realistically, I've got to figure it out. It's now my job to figure it out. There was something that shifted in me, and it's been super cool. There's nothing to hold me back from asking people for help, from looking for partners, from talking about what we're doing and just gathering. And that's all action, right? And it stems from the commitment. So I get that, we just want to plan and we just want to do things right, but we don't learn anything from reading and, reading books and taking courses and following our, favorite Instagram influencers and gurus. We learn nothing from all of that as much as we learn from the experience of acting and doing. So that's the first thing, guys. Just get into action. Do something small, something simple, anything that moves you in the direction of where you're trying to go. All right, number 2, check your source. Now, this couldn't be possibly more relevant in 2020. I mean, it's so check your source on everything, right? Before you share something on social media, you should check your source. And we went through an election that's not over yet. And just, oh my gosh, that's always a thing. But the kind of source I'm talking about here is about our beliefs. Now, this is where I, at the risk of sounding sort of cliche and maybe a little woo, and I don't even care because I really do. I know that it is all a balance of the things that we do and then the things that we believe and the things that we think about. So checking your source, really, it comes back to recognizing that the actions that we take are fueled by what we believe. Okay, so I'm going to paint this little picture for you. I've done this before on a different episode where we talked about what we can influence, but this is really thinking about the results that we're getting or the actions that we're taking. It all starts with something that we experience. Now, this could be an external event. It could be something that's done to us. Often we may seek out the experience, but oftentimes this is external to us, right? For example, somebody tells you no, or somebody says your idea is stupid, right? That's an experience. And then from that experience stems a couple of things. We have feelings about it, and then we have thoughts about it. So we have a heart response, we have a head response. Those things, our thoughts and our feelings about the things we experience, start to form beliefs about the way things work. So let's just take that example. We can follow this through. This is not in my notes, but I want to give you a relevant example. So you are sharing your big idea and the person says, well, that's never going to work here. That's a really stupid idea. Or who do you think you are, right? They say that to you. So you have that experience, you walk away and you start to think. You can think a couple things. And again, it takes so much practice to capture your thought, especially when it's self-injurious, and stop it and flip it into something that's more helpful. It takes a ton of practice. So we're not necessarily talking about that, but what can happen? You can think to yourself, well, there's really one of two ways, right? Well, there's a lot of things, but you could think either on the positive side, wow, It's so sad. Like I thought that person was going to catch my vision with me. Okay, so they're not the person that I thought was going to help me. Man, it's too bad. I would have really loved to work with them. I wonder who I need to talk to next, right? Like that's an option, or probably more typical. And maybe you land in this negative spot for a second and then you morph it into the positive, which that's the skill that we're trying to talk about here. But you might say, oh gosh, like they're right. This isn't going to work. And I didn't research this enough. I didn't do enough market analysis. I'm not smart enough. I'm missing something. What if this idea is terrible? Oh my gosh, and all of the catastrophic, like the catastrophizing about everything, right? Those thoughts and feelings that we have that we let actually live with it. So again, it hurts me still when people reject me. It stings. Like I'm a human being. It hurts my feelings, right? But the question is, what do I let sit, take hold, and then become a belief that I adopt about how things work? That's the thing. Again, it's recognizing that then the belief happens. So maybe the belief is, I'm not good enough to do this. Well, then think about it. So what comes next in the whole cycle of how we get results and how we make things happen? We take actions based on that belief. So what kind of actions is a person who thinks they're not worthy or not good enough? What kind of actions are they going to take? Likely inaction, right? You're going to delay, you're going to put off, you're going to second guess, you're going to doubt, and you're just going to sit there thinking, okay, I probably need to do some more research. And then you're going to go back to what we talked about in number 1, where you just think, if I just get more answers or I get more information, I'm somehow going to be better equipped to do this. It all comes back to catching those negative thoughts and choosing instead to frame them in a more positive light. We have to take control of that ourselves because it happens between our ears. Nobody can actually do that for us. The alternative, guys, like what we'd really be asking for then is for nobody to ever disagree with us. And think of how insane that is. We know that that's not possible, but instead we tend to like take on those, like especially negative feedback. We take it on and we wear it as if it makes something true. And the danger is then we adopt a belief that aligns with that, and it affects the actions we choose to take. And like I said, it's more often the actions we don't take. We stop doing the simple things, simple actions that move us forward because we are grounded and rooted in fear. So here's the question I would ask. And if this feels like, oh, well, again, it's so hard. Whenever I talk about things like this, I am not coming at you as a person who believes I've got this all figured out. I am coming at you from a person who is squarely smack in the middle of all of it. This building, the vision of what I have, it's crazy to a lot of people still. But the beauty is that I just kept trucking and I kept trying to find the guideposts of people that popped up in my world saying, no, like that is awesome. What a great idea. And you do need the validation. But the thing is, if I had stopped at the first no, can you even imagine? I wouldn't own this building. We wouldn't be doing this amazing thing. And I would be living with just deep, deep regret. So here's the question is, asking yourself what beliefs are driving my actions. And I ask you to think about the question, am I acting out of fear or am I acting out of hope? We can't live in both of those things at the same time. It's pretty hard to be both fearful and hopeful simultaneously. You're going to maybe waver back and forth between them, but hope has to win. I know for me, I will never regret having hope. I will regret letting fear hold me back from all the things that I think I could do to contribute what I've been given in the world. So check your source, check your beliefs, really take charge of how you're framing things up for yourself. All right, number 3. See, I got pretty soapboxy about that one. There you go. Friends. Okay, so if you're still with me, we're on number 3, ask for help. So I want to start these next few with a belief that can frame this thing. The first thing you have to believe is that there are people that want to help you. I think sometimes we come at partnership, and especially when we're trying to get other people on board with us, we come from this place of either desperation or like we think we have to convince people of something. I absolutely was living there for the first probably 6 months of this journey. So back, last June, when I had to come to these like different board meetings, I felt like I was pulling people along. Like just actually kind of dragging them. And when you think about that, there's nothing easy about that. It keeps me in this weird defensive energy. It was really dangerous. And it was because I hadn't ever stopped to believe that there are people that want to help. It took one. You land your first one, then you no longer feel crazy. And that person can change everything. That one champion, that one person that gets on board, you go, okay, like, I'm not crazy. This other person who I admire and respect and all the things, they see it and they get it. So first of all, you got to believe people want to help you. We can't stop at the first no. It's all about planting seeds. I said to my dad just the other day, we landed a fairly important local contract. It's a big deal. It's a show of local support. We get to influence our home community even more. So it was this amazing opportunity that we got. I called my parents because I still like share everything with my parents, and they're big encouragers of what we're trying to do. Well, what I'm trying to do. And I said, Dad, I just feel like I'm standing in a field of poppies that I've been planting for a decade. And suddenly they're popping up and blooming all around me. And it's just this really visceral feeling of like, this is the fruit of my labor, but it takes forever. Like, it can take a really long time for things to pop. And the action is to keep planting seeds, right? Keep telling your story, keep asking for help, keep sharing what you're trying to do. And the most important thing, I think, because you're gonna face criticism. I mean, we can't assume that everyone's going to be on board. We just know that, right? They're not going to agree with everything we're trying to do. So it's to remind ourselves, don't accept criticism from someone whom we would never seek advice from. Like if I wouldn't come to you and ask your opinion because I trust you and respect you and think you could help me, right? And I say, what do you think about this? If I wouldn't do that with a person, then why am I so quick to take on their criticism? It's a way to keep that in check. And it doesn't have to be a negativity thing. Like, I'm not a fan of the idea of calling people that don't get it haters or having this negative outlook about them, because at the end of the day, everybody is entitled to feel the way they feel about stuff. But if we're really going to make change and we're really going to make impact, we're really going to contribute something significant, or we're trying to, we can't be deterred that easily by somebody whose opinion at the end of the day doesn't actually matter that much. And it's not to in any way degrade or demean the person that's given you that feedback. It's just to keep it in perspective, right? Like, okay, and you can always just say, well, thank you for your feedback and move on. Ask for help. There are people that want to help you. That is part of the action in number 1, to just keep asking, keep reaching out, keep sharing the story. All right, number 4, allow for magic. Now, here again, very woo, I get it. But the belief that drives this is that there's possibility that exists outside of what we're capable of thinking up, okay? When you're a person with a really strong vision, we sometimes have a tendency to become a little myopic about it. And we go, okay, well, this is the only way that this can happen. And nope, I don't, like the idea of a business plan. This is the only way I'm going to do it. I'm only going to add these things. I'm only going to work with these people. And only. And we limit. So the belief of that there's possibility that exists outside of ourselves, it allows us to stay open. So I like to think of trying to keep my heart open and my mind open to people, to ideas, to ways of doing things. It's this really challenging, frankly, balance of trying to surrender instead of forcing. And man, anytime I've ever forced things, it never goes well for me. I instead have to sit back and say, okay, I need to plan. And again, there's not a percentage I would put on this. Is it an 80% plan? I don't know. What percentage does magic need? I don't know. But the point is have your plan, be strategic, be thoughtful, be mindful, but be open-minded, hearted, and be flexible and be loose, because then you allow other people's ideas, you allow other people's influence, you allow other ways of doing things to creep in. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you adaptable and flexible, which I think is super important right now. It's just recognizing and again, going back to number 1, this idea of action being the most important. we're never going to make it perfect. Business by its very nature is in a constant state of ebb and flow. And if we can just embrace that, knowing it's going to feel a little wily and a little, hard to get our arms around, sometimes maybe a little chaotic, like that's actually how it is. It's not because we're doing it wrong. It's because that's actually how it is. So as much as you love having your plan and your big vision and you think you know exactly how it should unfold, I encourage you to instead open up your hands just a little bit, like hold it, but hold it loosely. Number 5, oh man, this is a huge one. It's to discipline your disappointment. So here's the belief that drives this one. It's recognizing that disappointments are actually totally normal. And the only way they come into our world isn't because we somehow screwed up or that we inherently suck at what we're trying to do. Like disappointment, things not going our way, it's a natural part of the whole journey of life, all of life, not just business. But we tend to, again, like social media is one of the biggest, it gives such a false narrative. And again, like this isn't new. We all know this. We all know that that we tend to share the polished versions, like the filtered versions of our lives on Facebook and social media, Instagram, everywhere. We all know that, right? And so then there's been this big swing the other way where it's like people share every single one of their deep, dark, inmost thoughts to show that they're vulnerable. Like I almost can't even deal anymore. It just feels like, okay, my goodness, because it all comes down to like, well, what's worthy of sharing and what are people going to like? And it's such a trap, I think. I wanted to come to you today and remind you that you can be the smartest damn person in the world, actually. And shit's still going to go wrong. Like, I hate to just be that blatant about it, but I think what happens is we tend to just jump to, oh, it's me. Like I did something wrong. If I had planned better or I was somehow smarter or, fill in the blank with your most common self-criticism, right? Whatever you think your deficient is, that's what we want to blame it on. Like it wouldn't have happened. We just don't talk enough about the naturalness of disappointments. It's super normal. It is super normal to have up days and down days. It is super normal to feel crappy about things. It is super normal to feel like, you don't know if you're good enough or if you're capable. Or you try something and you thought it was such a smart plan and it just didn't go. It just didn't land. That's totally normal. And this is one of, for like, again, if we want to talk about a soapbox or a platform, normalizing failure is one of the things I hope that Growing Small Towns as an organization can bring to our region, where it's like we're terrified of trying something and it not working out because then everyone's going to know. And I have now grown to this place where I'm like, they're going to know what? That we wanted to see something happen. And so we put our best effort forward and what? That it didn't work out. And so what? Like, what does that say about me? What does that say about you? It means that you're willing to try. We just have to get over, again, kind of the detaching from the results and the outcomes and staying, again, focused on the action and what we're trying to accomplish. The biggest thing to think about, I think, with disciplining your disappointments is about your power and whether you choose to keep it or give it away. So when bad things happen, no matter what, in life or in business, and I'm telling you, I struggle with this. And it's because I have high expectations and I sometimes just set myself up for disappointment. I do. So when these bad things happen and we seek to find somebody to blame, right? Either somebody else, like there's got to be someone out there, it's their fault. And I mean, honestly, I wasn't even going to talk about the pandemic, but it's a great example. Like this awful thing happens and we immediately say, who can we blame? If it's a whole country or it's an individual person or it's an entire group of people, we just want somebody to blame. It somehow makes us feel better because the problem, right? The problem with power, and again, this is very Superman. With great power comes great responsibility. When we keep the power, that means we have to be part of the solution. And so as good old victims do, when we find somebody else to blame, we give our power away because then it's saying it's their problem now. But not only do we transfer the problem, we transfer the power. So keeping our power is to say, wow, that really sucks. Like And you maybe do though. What should I have done differently? But we're not, okay. And by the way, blame isn't just finding somebody outside of ourselves. It's also when we blame ourselves. It puts us in just as much of a victim mentality when we berate ourselves over a failure or a disappointment. It's the same energy. It's saying, okay, I need to shift away the power of this whole thing onto something else. And even if it's yourself, you're out of problem solving and you're into blame. And it just doesn't serve us. So instead, we keep our power when we say, all right, that sure as hell didn't go as I was hoping it would. Okay, what's the gift? What's the lesson? What's the learning? What's the value? There's got to be something. And you know what? That can be really hard to see at the time. And I am not by any way saying like everything happens for a reason, kind of a cliche thing. But generally speaking, every challenge or hardship, we're being forged, we're being strengthened, we're being refined. And it's hard. It can be really, really hard. But generally speaking, that value is there. And sometimes it takes some time to get through. But in that process, like while we're working through it, not giving away our power to do something about it is so, so important. So discipline your disappointment. Remind yourself every single day that even people at the top of their game, whatever that looks like, whatever field you're comparing yourself to or you happen to be operating in, every single person stumbles. And then it's all about what we choose to do with that experience. That makes all the difference. Okay, the last one, number 6, is to celebrate more. This again, I feel like in my small community, it's part the stoic Midwestern culture. I'm in North Dakota, right? This is who we are. We don't ever like toot our own horn. I really hate that phrase, man. I'm like, man, toot away. Like, I think it's so important that, especially when you're on a long journey like this process for me, I have had people in my life that I've been able to call up and say, I just wanted to share this with you. It feels like a big deal. And the best ones will say, it is a big deal. Like, way to go. And they're excited. But it's every little thing. It's not the stuff that people can see. It can be just something that you've experienced. Maybe it's an internal shift and you need people to share it with. We just don't celebrate enough. Every little win and every little victory on a big, long journey like this, it deserves a moment. So are you giving your small wins enough of a moment? Give them their chance to shine. Let them stand in the spotlight for a minute. And I also highly encourage you, a friend of mine shared this with me, to actually create a document. I have a Google Doc of just things that I've accomplished, things that I've done, because if you don't write them all down, it can be easy. Again, especially if you're waiting for big wins. Like right now with our building, it's like partnerships, right? We're looking for corporate partners that make sense, that are well aligned, both from a values perspective and the kind of impact that we're hoping to make. We're looking for those companies. So it could feel like I don't have anything significant to cheer about until I land one of those. It's no doubt. I mean, it's a big deal. But I'll just tell you, yesterday, my dad and I, again, it's just so much fun having a dad that like loves to tear stuff apart. So we go up into the building just yesterday afternoon. It was a Sunday for a couple of hours, and we tore down several walls in there. Not only is it just very satisfying, my dad actually, he kicks out. So we take off this like paneling on one side of the studs, right? And then the other side, they're just sitting there. They're just right for you to like blast your foot through it. And that's what he did. And he looked at me and he goes, God, I love tearing shit apart. And I just giggled. I was like, it does feel good, doesn't it? So here we are like smashing stuff apart. That's a win. And now it's one less thing that I have to pay contractors to do down the road, right? And every little thing, like it seems insignificant, but it's not. Because every big project is a series of very small wins. So if we don't celebrate them, we can easily forget that we're making progress. And you just don't want to do that. The momentum and the celebration, and it feels good. So pop champagne, put some Baileys in your coffee. I mean, it doesn't have to be booze related, but please stop and make sure you take a minute. Okay. All right. So to recap, we're talking about doing big things. And I shared with you that, this journey for me, it's been, and a year doesn't sound like a long time, but when it's the only thing you're thinking about and working on, basically, and then plus, a pandemic hits, right? the fear starts to feel stronger than the hope. And that's why I'm coming at you today, because I think there's never been a more important time for us to root down into hope. So the 6 things I shared was that there's no replacement for action. Check your source, check your beliefs, ask for help, allow for magic, discipline your disappointment, and celebrate more. This has been an exceptionally trying year. Things are depressed right now, right? Economically, our communities are depressed. Spiritually and emotionally, I think we're a little depressed. It's been extremely difficult. And also then just in our communities, we're not getting to do things the way we're used to doing them. And so there's this loss that we're still grappling with, and we may be for a while. But I truly believe that, like with any market, the low times are the best times to invest and then position yourself and the community for a comeback. Because I believe, the other thing I believe is that we will come back. Yes, things are going to be different. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I actually believe that it's never going to go back to exactly the way things were. And I also choose to know and believe that that's okay. It's okay. It might be hard. We like things the way we like them, don't we? I mean, we're creatures of habit. That's how this works. But I don't want any of you listening to this to feel like these circumstances are too difficult or challenging to launch something in. Because now more than ever, we need people with optimism. We need people who are rooted in hope. And we need people who are enthusiastic about the future and where we're going. We need you. And whatever your big idea is, we need that too. So I really pray today that you'll hear these words and believe me when I tell you that I need these things every day. I need to remind myself of these things every day too. I am not on any sort of mountaintop. I am not looking down, telling you how to do things. I think that there's something to be learned from embracing the messiness of all of it, of life in general. Relationships are hard, tight-knit community, like small towns are tricky. And I say this all the time because I think it's like we have to pick a lane. It's either in small town life is the best life imaginable, or small town life is, inbred and unhealthy, right? And I don't think it's actually like that. I think it's always kind of we're bobbing and weaving in and out of lanes. How close and tight knit we are as a community means that we show up for each other. And that's a beautiful thing. It can also mean that there's too much closeness, and sometimes gossip and the social constructs of small towns can be really hard sometimes to navigate. But I think the more that we can embrace some of these things just to be evident, like they are going to happen, and it is how we choose to move through them and how we support ourselves with people and how we choose to think about them, that's what I think makes the difference. So doing something new and something big is never, ever easy. And there's never a perfect time. But I really want you to hear that you're not in this alone. We do this podcast to give people like you, the small town doers and the small town dreamers, a place to show up, be seen, and get the support that they need. I have never been more grateful for you, the person listening to this, and for every single person trying to do their part to build a better future for their small town. I honestly cannot wait to see what you all do in 2021. Until next time, friends.